Austin, we appreciate the time as always. Tennessee is a few days away from opening up spring practice. One of the top storylines ahead of the start is something we talked to you about last week, the status of Rickey Gibson. Any update there with his status ahead of spring practice, Tennessee's rising junior at cornerback?
I expect him to be out there on Friday when practice starts. And, I think in the end, I think all this kind of stuff calms down and gets resolved and all this stuff. But I do expect him to go through spring with Tennessee, which, again, I think for him to be at Tennessee this fall, he needs to go through spring with Tennessee on the football field and not, just as someone who is around the program. He's been doing all of the winter workout stuff. I expect him to be on the practice field on Friday. I'll be surprised if he's not.
Will that ensure he is with the team this fall, or is that just the next step in still trying to get everything worked out for him to decide to stay instead of entering the portal?
I mean, I think that's the next step. I think it's a big step, though. So I do think that's the next step. I don't think that just because he's out there that it's 100% locked in, but I do think that it goes a long way to making sure it's over 50% that he'll be back here in the fall.
I like it. I like it. Faison Brandon, one of the top players in the country, committed to Tennessee. What does it look like with him being able to recruit other players and kind of help build out the class?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, you saw 2 years ago, Nico did not have that much impact. Now, I think part of that was the fact that, all of the kids that Nico, were normally around were West Coast kids. Like, he wasn't tied in with kids from North Carolina and Georgia and that type of stuff. I thought George had more impact last year. I think Faison can have even bigger impact this year. Obviously, I think Tennessee is a player for Tristen Keys, who will be here this weekend, Jason, the five-star receiver from the state of Mississippi. The reason Tennessee is at the top or near the top of his list is Faison Brandon, his relationship with Faison. And then, of course, he has a good relationship with Kelsey Pope, has a good relationship with Josh Heupel. But Faison Brandon has played a big part in Tennessee being a big factor for Tristen Keys. So I do think that he can have an impact. Obviously, recruiting, offensive linemen, recruiting additional receivers to go along with the two kids they already have committed in Tyron Evans. And then, obviously locally, they don't get much bigger than Tyreek King. And so I think he can have an impact. Ultimately, though, in this age of recruiting where it comes down to NIL in a lot of ways, it's not all NIL. Relationships matter too, but I do think that the impact of a particular player is minimalized. Like, they can have impacts. I think Faison can have an impact. Is it like something where everybody just says, I'm going with Faison no matter what? I don't care what NIL I get. No, I think it still boils down to, the NIL dollars and all that.
We're talking to Austin Price of Volquest.com. Who are some names that come to mind first that need to have a big spring, that could have a big impact on what Tennessee does this fall, that you'll be keeping an eye on or keeping an ear out on how they perform over the next few weeks?
Yeah, I just wrote about this. As far as I want to go with returning guys. My newcomers piece on this comes out tomorrow, but returning players, for me, it all starts with the quarterback position. Nico had a really solid redshirt freshman year, but he's got to take the next step, and that's from being a leader, that's from being a game changer, not someone who, plays really solid football, but someone who literally can take the game over. And I think that Nico has that in him. I think it's a huge spring for Edwin Spillman. I really do. I think that, with Arion Carter out after having some off-season shoulder cleanup, it's a big spring for him, because I think Tennessee wants him to become kind of that 1A, 1B to Arion Carter. Edwin Spillman, would have played more last year had he not gotten hurt. Did play a little bit there at the end of the season against Vanderbilt and Ohio State. I think it's a big spring for him. I think it's a big spring for Lance Hurd. You put a lot of NIL into him. You need him to have a better year two than he had in year one. And I thought he was better from at the end of the year than he was at the beginning of the year last year, the more he plays. Mike Matthews is another, and Jordan Ross would be the other. I think if you're Tennessee's defensive staff, you're hoping Jordan Ross can have the second year, that James Pierce had 2 years ago when, Pierce really burst onto the scene.
Which non-transfer offensive lineman are you looking to have a big spring and step forward?
For me, I think it's got to be somebody that can play center, and that's there's a few of them. So I don't want to take the cop-out answer, Jason, but I think it's whoever out of that, Jesse Perry, William Satterwhite, Max Anderson, out of that kind of trio, who can take the bull by the horns and run with it at center. Because if you can do that, then, Pendleton and Moy can be your guards, and away you go on the offensive line. There was some forced change a year ago because of transfers in the secondary, and that turned out really good for Tennessee when it comes to, Jamon McCoy and Rickey Gibson and Buu Carter. There's forced change due to graduation on the offensive line. And so I'm interested to see what that offensive line looks like once they kind of figure out who their five are going to be.
Austin Price is with us from Volquest.com. What is this spring going to look like for Buu Carter?
He's going to be playing both sides. He's going to get some real run on offense, in my opinion. And, obviously he's going to have to prove he can juggle being on both sides of the ball. You did that in high school, but doing it in high school, just kind of let the athlete be the athlete and know a few basic concepts and roll. This is a little more nuanced, a little more, extreme when it comes to knowing, every part of the offense and defense, especially with Tennessee's offense. Think about it. When you go out there, like in the old days when you had somebody that maybe played both ways or had somebody that had a package, so to speak, you had a package for a play. When you go out there on Tennessee's offense because of the tempo, you're expected to stay out there for the entire drive. And so, like, if you're out there for the entire drive and then, let's say you score a touchdown at the end of the drive, then you go right back on defense. Like, it's going to be taxing on him. But, again, this spring is seeing if he can handle all that they're going to throw at him.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about Buu Carter is he's your starting punt returner, too. Mark Jones, played all three phases of the game when I was a freshman. And, there was times he needed an IV. I had to go offensively. And, we're expecting this offense to rotate more of the receivers right this year. So wouldn't that give Buu, an opportunity to maybe not have to be in there for those long drives and maybe be in there for 3 or 4 plays and then let someone come in and substitute him out?
The difference, I don't think they're expecting to rotate in the middle of the series. Like, if you're going to go tempo, you're not coming out. Like, that's the whole point of the tempo. I think you might see more rotation in between series, like, the three you see in Series 2 and the three you see in Series 3 could be totally different. I'm with you there, but I think if you're going tempo, now, if you have a timeout or an injury or you're slowing it down for a specific purpose, Jason, then absolutely, you would see some change out. But, like, if they're really trying to truly do tempo more than they've done really the last 2 years, then they're not going to be, rotating in and out in the middle of the drive because that defeats the purpose of the tempo.
Austin, any other news, nuggets, notes to add in with spring practice starting up, recruiting continuing to be a focus, or anything to promote there with what you're covering at Volquest?
No, we got a little bit of everything going right now. We got spring practice previews. We'll keep getting you ready for that. That starts on Friday. Tennessee will have 4 practices before they hit spring break. So this Friday, the next Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then we got basketball coverage. The gang's all in Oxford, Mississippi for tonight's big game. Obviously, Eric Kane will be having the baseball balls covered tonight from Lindsey Nelson Stadium. And we'll just keep keeping on Volquest. It's a great time. Enjoying right now. Check us out for $1 for the first week. $1 for the first week. Be a part of a neat community where we talk Tennessee athletics and a little bit more all the time.
Well, I'm looking forward to our recruiting date over there at Texas Row House, and I'll even take care of the rolls, man.
Oh, man, the cinnamon butter?
Yeah, I'll take care of AP. It's on me. It's on me, buddy.
That is treating you right there,
Let's
Austin.
do it on a Sunday.
I would accept. Volquest.com to read, see, hear the guys. By the way, before you go, 3 Grand Slams for Tennessee last night. That tied an NCAA record. Will Tony Vitello's team hit 4 Grand Slams in a game before the season ends?
No, I do not think they will. You never say never, but I don't think they will. The real question is, can they? They set the SEC record for Grand Slams last year, so that team's on the clock. This team's trying to catch it, and they're about halfway there to the NCAA mark for Grand Slams in a single season. So, something to always try to strive for.
Yeah, they've got some power once again in that lineup, and they're covering that as well. Volquest.com to check all of it out. Hey, Austin, appreciate the time and all the information today. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.